Oh, hey, I got an email. Dear Strongback. Excuse me. Hey, Pat. I was trying out KI during my stream, and had some killer rank players dominate me as a bronze player and teabag to make sure I knew who won. I get that it's part of the mind game to try and tilt your opponent and make them play poorer, but I guess I don't see the point in doing it at the end of a match when you're about to return to the matchmaking queue. I feel like this practice can be especially harmful when done to players that are new to the genre, since they haven't built up the mental fortitude required by fighting games, so there's a chance they might not come back. I still remember accidentally enabling matchmaking while playing arcade mode in MVC3 once, felt humiliated by the person who played me, and lost interest in ever really playing that game again. I can only assume people who do this want to boost their sense of self and aren't considering the possible ramifications to the growth of the community if they do this against random low-rank people. For the record, I'm not salty, just curious. Keep on rockin', Don Luke. Hey Don Luke, thanks for the email. You already have the answer. You're playing against people who don't play with any consideration for their opponent. It might be because they're a dumb kid who doesn't know any better, or it might be because they're emotionally a dumb kid who doesn't know any better. Fighting games reward us for empathizing with our opponents, because that's how we make the sick, hard reads, but it is typically the metagame that rewards people for being considerate opponents. This is a really important of fighting for fun, so let's talk about it. Fighting games, like martial arts, offer people a space to engage in mutually consensual combat. When two martial artists spar with each other, they do so under a shared understanding of how hard they'll hit each other, which is informed by the relative skill level and size of both people, their personal comfort zone and risk tolerance, the rules of the training community, and the nature of the art itself. This is all an important part of being a sparring partner because we're literally taking each other's health into our own hands, and if you break someone's trust, you might have a hard time finding people to spar with. So if you're a jerk, you're not likely to stick around for that long because no one will want to train with you, unless you find other people who are like you, in which case you all hang out and form the Cobra Kai. Kids and adults in martial arts usually learn this pretty early on, because getting hit generally causes sharp emotional reactions in people. If you want to learn how to fight, one of the first things you'll need to do is learn how to control the feelings of stress, shock, panic, fear, anger, and actual physical pain that you feel when you get hit. When I taught boxing, I'd often tell people that the most valuable thing you learn from boxing is not to throw a punch, but to take one. Learning how to handle someone willing to throw hands is useful for projecting confidence and standing up for yourself. And once you get used to it, as Bruce Lee said, a punch is just a punch. Now, fighting games are different from martial arts because they usually don't involve physical pain, but the feelings of stress, shock, panic, fear, and anger often still kick in. Your entire brain and body is focused on telling your character what to do, and when you get hit, they stop listening to you for a little while, which gets annoying. Your opponent is there to frustrate you. Add in execution errors, net play lag, wondering why their move beat your move, and everything else, and you have a big pile of frustration to manage, even if you don't get salty about losing. We may not be physically hurting each other, but we're still exchanging mental damage, which is what makes these games so spicy. It's also why I think fighting games are truly special among video games, as they create a very intimate connection between the player and their character, and between the two players themselves, that I don't find nearly as strong in any other game genre. Back when fighting games were only in arcades and living rooms, we had plenty of jerks, and people could get real mad about a quarter. But by and large, if you were a huge jerk, no one would want to play with you, so most of the people who couldn't hold their L's either learned how to do it quickly, or stopped playing, because no one stays on top forever. Now, I'm not going to romanticize the past, mind you. People these days in fighting games are a lot nicer than they were back then, and it's largely because we've grown up and learned that things are better with some love and trust to balance out the salt and spice. However, people usually learn this when they engage with healthy communities, by going to tournaments or finding chill discords or whatever. If you're net playing with randos and matchmaking, there's nothing connecting you to the other person. You're not training partners at the same gym. You don't share a local scene. You're not even in a space where you can see their body language or talk to each other unless you have voice chat on. You're just two people signing up to fight a stranger for a couple minutes before moving on to the next one, and you're about to engage in an intimate combat simulation with each other where one of you will likely leave dissatisfied. This shit makes Tinder look reserved by comparison. When you play in random matchmaking, you're playing against anyone who just wants to fight for any reason. Some do it because they love to win, others because they love to learn, or style, or just hang out and make some cool friends. And some people out there enjoy fighting because they're bullies, and they like the feeling of having power over others and using it to inflict pain. Bullies usually get weeded out from in-person fighting game events because they don't do well in tournaments. But if they're net playing, it's not hard to find a couple poor scrubs to beat on if that's what you're trying to do. And the thing about bullies is that they usually don't actually realize they're being bullies. They're usually just acting out ways of relating to other people that they learned from others and just assumed were natural. The teabagging you're getting from after getting bodied is probably one that they got from someone else. Maybe that's how they play the game with their IRL homies from school or something, and just assume that everyone else plays that way too. Different people have different emotional reactions to getting hit by a punch, and it's easy to assume that however you feel is how other people feel too. But when you're playing online, there are often few tools to pick up on whether the other player feels the way that you do. So it's very common for two players to walk away from a set with completely different experiences. If you were playing in person, you could read their emotional state through their body language and tone of voice, but in net play, there are no such cues, and their playful taunt could come off as cruel. So some people do it because they're sadists, and others are just having rowdy fun, and others just do it because they saw a top player do it and thought it was funny, and it's practically impossible to tell without some other form of communication besides the game itself. It's like a Turing test for assholes. This is why I often tell people that if you're not playing fighting games for the people, you're probably missing out on the best part. And this is also why I hate playing online matchmaking. Give me lobbies or long sets on Discord or something, but please, no rando matchmaking for me ever again. And as an aside, teabagging is dumb as hell. If you want to taunt, commit to it with an actual taunt. Put your chest into that shit. You want to tell someone they're trash? Play Guilty Gear, and you can do a post-round taunt that will give your opponent 50% meter in the next round. That's how you fucking taunt someone. Fighting games are weird and beautiful, and so are the people who play them. I'm Patrick Miller, thanks for watching, and if you liked this content, please subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitch, and check out my work on Patreon. Love your life, be good to one another, and play fighting games.